Hey everybody, welcome back to Run and Gun. I'm JT, and in this video, I'm going to show you guys how I created this John Wick movie poster. For starters, I really like the John Wick series. Keanu Reeves is just awesome in general, and I don't use this word very often, but I think these movies are pretty cinematic. I just love the way they're shot. No pun intended. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break down this movie poster, see how it was originally shot, and then we're gonna recreate it ourselves. So let's go ahead, let's analyze this original movie poster from the John Wick Chapter 2, which is one of my favorites, with John Wick in the middle and all of these kind of secret agent assassin guys around him with all of the guns. And if you zoom into the poster, you can see this is some pretty standard butterfly lighting, and you can tell that from the little shadow under his nose here. And it looks like it's just a single light source, and it's just above his head and just kind of in front of him a little bit. A fairly hard light source, you can tell by the sharp edges of the shadow. And there may or may not be a little bit of fill light or maybe a bounce card reflector, but other than that, it looks like a pretty hard single light source. The other thing you can see looking at this photo, there's not really any shadows on him. He would be covered by shadows if all of these people were actually there. So I believe these were shot in different sections. So I believe each one of these hands was shot separately than Keanu, at least by the looks of it. They may have done it all together, but that's how we're going to do it. We're going to do these all separately, shoot them separately, because I just have 2 arms, not 20. So we're going to shoot these in different pieces to recreate this. So that looks like it. It looks pretty easy. Let's go ahead into our makeshift studio in my office and throw up a quick black backdrop and get going. So what do we need to make this happen? For starters, we need a camera. That's the obvious thing here. We need a light. We need a black suit. I'm going to use a black and a white backdrop, a black backdrop for the portrait and a white backdrop for shooting all of these hands with guns, because it'll be easier to cut those out later and composite them in Photoshop if they're on a white background. And last but not least, we're going to need guns. We are going to need lots of guns. So to keep this simple, I used an off-camera flash, an SB910. My camera settings were a 50th of a second f5.6 and ISO 160. And I believe my flash power was right around 1/32 or 1/16 power. And I started shooting some test portraits, and I realized the light was just a little bit too hard. And that's where I used this quick little hack of throwing a plastic grocery bag on top of my flash, creating a little DIY softbox. And I ended up loving the shadows and loving the slightly softer look that this gives. So quick little DIY hack for you guys out there, especially if you're on a budget. So I like the way these portraits ended up turning out. We're going to end up narrowing these down to 1 or 2 of the best ones, so that I'm only editing 1 or 2 photos. I ended up taking about 20 or so portraits to get the one I wanted. So we'll go back and forth here, figure out which one matches John Wick the best, and we'll go ahead and we'll edit 1 or 2 of those. So just a quick edit here in Camera Raw. I tried to expose for the subject, which is me, John Wick. We're going to use Adobe Color. No, let's actually use Adobe Portrait. We're going to do some very, very minor editing. We're going to bring up the shadows a little bit, bring down the highlights on my forehead a little bit. It was looking a little bit shiny. And then again, bring up the shadows in the suit just a touch. And then we'll go ahead and we will open this in Adobe Photoshop and start our John Wick composite. So next what we're going to do is we are going to create another composition, because the poster is in a vertical format. What we're going to do is create something a little bit taller than it is wide, so we have plenty of room to do our composite here. And then to get the selection around myself, all I did was hit the select subject, and that gave us a quick and dirty selection and made our job pretty easy here in Photoshop for a quick selection, so I didn't have to do it all by hand. Again, it can be pretty rough. We're not looking for anything great. I just want to make sure that if something is behind John Wick, then we can throw it on a layer behind the portrait of myself. So after getting our main portrait in, we're going to go back to Adobe Bridge, and we're going to get a bunch of photos of me with guns and a bunch of arms. And yes, I am wearing a pair of shorts because it was hot, thanks global warming, but it was a little bit toasty and you couldn't see me from the waist down anyway, so I was wearing a dress shirt, a nice sports jacket, and some shorts. So I don't care, judge me. But when the zombie apocalypse comes and I'm comfortable, I'll be the one saying I told you so. So we'll do a really quick edit on all of these hands. We're gonna end up chopping most of this out. We'll delete the background and we'll just brighten up some of the shadows here, bring down the highlights a little bit so they're not completely blasted, make our profile match with Adobe Portrait, do a tiny bit of sharpening, and then we'll import all of these into Photoshop. We're gonna do this about 20 different times, so I will fast forward here in just a second. So once all of these are imported into Photoshop, then we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna do the same select subject button here again. It does a pretty good rough job. I just have to go in, clean up a little bit around the sleeves, which are a little bit bright. You can see the cuffs there. Just have to add those to the selection. And then again, we're gonna do this about 20 different times. So I won't show you all those. I'll fast forward through that part so you can kind of get a general idea, but times 20. So we will go ahead, we will start copying and pasting these over into our main portrait or our main canvas of our John Wick composite and just kind of start lining these up. And again, we're just showing the arm here, so there was no reason to have a whole body. And I think these are looking pretty darn good. We'll fast forward again. Lots and lots of guns. God bless America. We have tons of guns going on here. Again, me just copy and paste it over and over and over. And I had to roll around on the floor. Took a couple photos of myself in the suit just to kind of have some extra images of suits here to throw in the background. I'm not sure if I love how those look, but we'll just kind of throw those in there for now. Again, lots of copying, lots of pasting, lots more guns. Throw some more guns in there, and when in doubt, add more guns. So now we are at a point where it's starting to look kind of full. I'm liking where it's going. We can always use some minor edits. Remember, when you're working on a big composite like this, just save repeatedly. Always keep saving. You don't want to lose a ton of work. If you can throw on auto save, whatever you need to do, just remember to save every 15 or 20 minutes so you're not losing your work. So we have fast forwarded here through all the copying and pasting and clipping out different pictures of me holding guns. Remember, always go back to your reference image. We'll go back to our Keanu reference image here of John Wick, and I think these are looking pretty good. We're looking pretty close. We have a whole bunch of layers here with different masks. And I'm going to go ahead and throw all of those in a group. Make sure you're organized. Once you start working with 10, 20, 30 layers, things can get really crazy really quickly. So we'll go ahead, throw all those in a group so we can collapse that group and keep it organized. And the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a bit of a vignette. You can see around the original poster image, there's a very heavy vignette that really focuses your eye on John Wick. So we will use our gradient tool and kind of create a layer. We'll do the same thing with the portrait of myself. We'll create a quick gradient to kind of have the bottom of my suit fade off into the shadows here. And that's already looking much, much better. The only thing we have to do is we're going to adjust the size of this. I kind of eyeballed it and winged it a little bit when it came to the poster size. I'm not doing it exactly like the poster from John Wick. We're going to make it our own a little bit. So I just kind of winged it. Now we're going to actually make it a little bit taller to give some of these arms with guns and assassin guys kind of some more room here. And I think that's looking pretty good. Just make it a little bit taller. I think that works. We're going to have to stretch out our vignette. We'll have to stretch out our background as well to cover. But I think this canvas size looks a little bit better. And again, just minor tweaks here and there, but we're looking a lot closer now. It doesn't have to be an exact replica, but I really like the way this is looking so far. Very John Wick-like. So now I'm going to go in, I'm going to make some minor tweaks. There's some little bits that we missed earlier when I was doing our masking and selections, and we're just going to go ahead, we'll clean those up around some of the fingers. You can see here there's some bits in the trigger guards, and I'm just going to go ahead and clean those up a little bit. Again, attention to detail is what really sells these composites, so try and pay attention to the little things. So we'll fast forward through this cleanup. I probably spent 30 minutes to an hour just cleaning little bits up, but I won't make you guys sit through all of that. So once our basic cleanup is done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start adding some titles. So instead of John Wick, we will do Run and Gun because, I mean, the pun just, it works. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to use the same type of red and white palette here. Try and find a font that kind of works, a nice sans serif font. Maybe add a quick LUT on there for some color. Again, doesn't have to be 100%. I'm also going to try a photo filter here in Photoshop. I don't use these very often, but I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of a blue on here, a bluish green, and that really makes the gun barrels and slides kind of look bluish, and I think that looks pretty cool. You can see the John Wick poster is much more desaturated, but I like where this is going. We're just kind of playing around at this point. I think that looks pretty good. We can throw my own little slogan up at the top, get out and go shoot, because again, it just works. Again, we're looking close here, keep doing some minor edits, throw some gradients on our text. That's starting to have that kind of cinematic feel. I'm really liking this. We're getting very close to the John Wick poster here, and I really enjoy how this is looking. But John Wick also had kind of a beat up face here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding some fake blood and some fake scratches and scars to his face. So if this feels a little too gory for you guys, I just want to say it is all fake. These are all photos of prosthetics and fake injuries. So it's not real, but if you want to go ahead and skip this part, and if it's feeling a little too graphic for you, that's up to you. You guys can go ahead and skip a couple minutes. But again, all fake. So we're going to go ahead, copy and paste some fake little scars on here, some fake scratches, because John Wick kind of got the crap beat out of him in these films. And we're just going to go ahead, make some rough selections, go ahead and edit out here so it looks like it's actually behind the hair, make some curves adjustments, do some more erasing, and I think that looks pretty darn good. We'll throw a couple more scratches on my face. Some scratches, some gashes. I had to clean this one up a couple of times because it just wasn't looking right. And around the second time, I actually got it looking right. That looks much better. So throw a quick gash here on the cheek. We'll throw a slash on the nose. And again, for like the third time, I just want to say these are all fake prosthetics made with plastic and tissue paper and some fake blood. So those look good. All right, well, I think that looks gory enough. We're going to try and keep this PG-13. Now, I noticed there was a little bit of a grungy layer on top of the number 2, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to add in a little bit of grunge here. Set that either to overlay or multiply. Throw in some drop shadows, and last but not least, we're going to do a little bit of color grading on this, see how that turns out. I'm actually going to use my Blockbuster LUT. You can find that on my website at therunandgun.com/shop. My summer Blockbuster LUT has a nice teal and orange feel to it, and then we're going to go ahead and we will desaturate all of that. Again, I like going back and forth to the John Wick poster and seeing kind of what it looks like versus what mine looks like. And you'll notice sometimes in your composites, even if you're recreating something, it kind of has its own life and it has a little bit of its own character. So you may end up even going in a slightly different direction, which is kind of what I did. I went a little more teal and orange here for that kind of Hollywood blockbuster look. The last thing that I think I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of these logos off of these guns because they're not paying me, they're not sponsoring me, and they're just kind of distracting little details. So we'll go in, we'll erase all of these little brands and logos here. Get rid of those, get rid of Smith & Wesson, anything else over here we don't need. Clean this image up a little bit. I'll fast forward through that bit. And again, just those little details, minor finishing touches here is what's going to make your image look awesome. So these are looking great. Oh, we got one more over here to get rid of. I think it looks pretty badass, if I do say so myself. It looks like a thriller poster, almost like a horror movie. And I think this looks awesome. So again, we can go back and forth between my poster, the original John Wick poster, but I really enjoy the way this turned out. And I hope you guys learned some little things about compositing, taking portraits, and smashing some things together in Photoshop, and safely playing with guns. Again, all of these were unloaded and used in a very safe, professional manner. If you don't know what you're doing with guns, I say don't use them. Be safe out there, don't shoot yourself in the foot. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that like button and let me know down below in the comments that you enjoyed it. And maybe I'll do some more movie posters in the future if you guys like this. Also, be sure to subscribe, and until next time, get out and go shoot.